I will try to demonstrate the build from source prototype and how it has been integrated in the Pyrsia node code. So let's have a look first at the documentation, developers, architecture and use cases. So this is currently the case. We will have multiple authorized nodes, each with its own build pipeline service, which can do builds from source and publish it into the Pyrsia network, so it's available to all other nodes to download. So what I will show right now is a sample Java project that will use the Pyrsia node, the local Pyrsia node, as a maven repository to fetch a maven artifact. And a maven artifact has been published into the Pyrsia node and Pyrsia network by doing a build from source, also for this demo on the same Pyrsia node. And it does that by using an external build pipeline service. This is a prototype for now, but let me show it right now. So if you go to the documentation again, tutorials, there's a build from source tutorial right here. So let's try to follow this. First of all, I need to clone the Pyrsia repository, which I already have, obviously. So I pull the latest, and then I build everything right here. So once that is done, I will start the Pyrsia node, and I will point to, I will say that I want to see all the debug logs. I set dev mode to on, and I specify a temporary Pyrsia artifact directory. What I also specify here is a new argument pipeline service endpoint, and that is the build pipeline service that I showed here, running on port 8080. Obviously, this in a production environment, this will be a separate service somewhere, running and completely isolated. So let me run this right here. Here we go. Let's wait until it's up. While this is starting up, I need to talk about the mapping we had to create, because a Maven artifact has a group ID, an artifact ID, and a version. So it's hard for Pyrsia to know what to build. So we had to create a mapping between this specific artifact ID, this Maven specific artifact ID, and the source repository. That's what you can see here. So if we created a public mapping repository, that obviously will need to be extended with lots more artifacts. So let me show this mapping right here. So it basically says for this artifact, group ID, artifact ID, and version, this is the source repository and the tag that will need to be used to build from source. Okay, so let's move on and let's set up our build pipeline prototype. So this is a prototype that is just in a separate repository, and I've cloned it right here. And the main thing is it will do a Maven build. So I've set up a Java home pointing to JDK 11, which is in our demo is an important requirement. But in the end, the build service will have to resolve these dependencies on its own, obviously. So this is Java 11, and let's see how to run this. I have to run this. There you go. So now it's listening on port 8080. So my Pyrsia node, which is running here, can talk to it. What we'll do next is we'll trigger an actual build from source for Commons Codec 1.15. So we go to debug, target debug, of course. And then I'll see if I've configured my Pyrsia correctly. There you go. Okay, so it goes to my local host. And then I'll trigger the build from source like this. There you go. So it did the request to the Pyrsia node, which then delegated the build to the build pipeline prototype right here, which is now doing the tests. And the Pyrsia node itself is actually waiting for the build to finish. So, and that just happened right now. So the build is finished, and the Pyrsia node, when it requested the build status, got a positive result from the build pipeline, and then downloaded the build artifacts. Let me maybe show it right here. So this is the build result for this particular artifact. So it has like 15 artifacts right here. They were all downloaded, and Pyrsia then, in a normal situation, would try to reach consensus with the other authorized nodes. So this is skipped for now. Depends on the blockchain code which is being developed at the moment as well. When the consensus has been reached, and we just assume it has been, the Pyrsia node creates a transparency log for each artifact that has been built. Transparency log looks like this, and as a result, the artifact itself is also stored locally on the Pyrsia node and provided in the peer-to-peer network. Right. So that's basically it for the build from source. Now, how can we verify that this works? So we have a maven project right here. So I have a little Java file that uses this class from Commons Codec. And to build this, show it right here, we have set up a POM XML with a dependency to Commons Codec, and we have also configured our Maven repository to use localhost 7888, which is our local Pyrsia node running here. All right. Before I run this, let me, to be sure that I didn't run this before, remove my local cache dependency for Commons Codec, right? And then I can do the Maven clean package right here. What we will see is what happened is right here, downloading from Pyrsia the Commons Codec POM and the Commons Codec jar, which it needed. You can see here in the Pyrsia node logs that the jar was actually requested locally. Yeah, that's it.